The American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, the battle for unity and freedom. In 1861, the United States found itself on the brink of destruction. A divide had grown between the northern and southern states, pushing the country into a brutal four-year conflict that would reshape the nation and change the course of history. The Civil War erupted over two primary issues, slavery and states' rights. While the North had moved toward an industrial economy and gradual abolition of slavery, the South remained dependent on agriculture, with slavery at its core. Tensions over these differences deepened as new states joined the Union, sparking fierce debates about whether they would be slave or free states. Narrator: the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 intensified these tensions. Lincoln's anti-slavery stance was seen as a threat to the Southern way of life. 11 Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as their president. In April 1861, Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter, a Union fort in South Carolina, marking the official beginning of the Civil War. Within days, President Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteer soldiers, and the nation found itself irrevocably plunged into a conflict like none it had seen before. The Civil War was marked by numerous pivotal battles. At Bull Run, the first major clash, Union hopes for a quick victory were dashed. At Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history, more than 22,000 soldiers fell. Gettysburg became a turning point, as Union forces under General George Meade repelled Confederate advances. Key figures like Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant rose to prominence, leading their armies through campaigns that would define their legacies. The war wasn't just fought on the battlefields. Soldiers on both sides endured harsh conditions, limited supplies, and fear of death. Meanwhile, civilians, especially women, took on new roles. Thousands of women became nurses, spies, and supporters of the war effort. African Americans enlisted in the Union Army after the Emancipation Proclamation, fighting for their freedom and the Union. On January 1, 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory were to be set free. While it didn't immediately free all enslaved people, it redefined the war as a fight for freedom and justice, paving the way for the eventual abolition of slavery. The Union victory at Gettysburg marked a crucial turning point. Meanwhile, General William Tecumseh Sherman's infamous March to the Sea in 1864 cut a devastating path through the South, aiming to cripple the Confederate economy and morale. The tactic of total war brought the horrors of conflict to civilians, foreshadowing modern warfare. After 4 years of relentless conflict, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. The war was over, but the nation's wounds were deep. Just days after the surrender, tragedy struck again as President Lincoln was assassinated, plunging the country into mourning. The Civil War paved the way for Reconstruction, a turbulent era aimed at rebuilding the South and integrating formerly enslaved people into American society. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, abolished slavery across the nation, followed by the 14th and 15th Amendments, guaranteeing citizenship and voting rights to African Americans. The Civil War left an indelible mark on the United States. It united the nation under one flag, secured the end of slavery, and set in motion the fight for civil rights that would continue for generations. Today, its legacy lives on, a reminder of the sacrifices made and the ongoing journey toward freedom and equality for all Americans. The American Civil War wasn't just a conflict of armies but of ideas, ideals, and identities. In its wake, the United States emerged a transformed nation, committed to a vision of liberty and justice. It reminds us that unity, though hard-won, is worth every sacrifice. And with a solemn melody fading out, displaying the quote, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Abraham Lincoln.